Hello, people of Earth, and welcome to the world's greatest book club. I am Paul Scheer. This is episode 4. And let me tell you, if this is the first time you're watching our show, well, welcome, welcome. We are in a weird time right now, and we're looking for things to distract us, to keep us interested. And what we're trying to do here is create a book club where you can go back into the rich history of Marvel and read books that you might have forgotten about, books that you've never read, or maybe just revisit some classics. But first, I wanted to check in with our man on the street to see what books people are reading. So take it away, Paul. Hey, Paul. I was going to ask people what Marvel books they're reading, but there's no one on the street. Hashtag stay home is working. Yeah, I'm not even sure I should be out here. I don't think this is essential work. Not good for the bit, but I appreciate it. I am, as always, joined by Mr. Steve Wacker. How are you, Steve?
Good.
Over the course of this show, we have talked about so many great books. Blow my mind, who is a Marvel character that I don't know about?
I guess if I had to put my finger on the most obscure and probably most surprising, I'd have to go right to the pride and joy of Marvel publishing, Billy Ray Cyrus, #1.
Whoa, wait. Billy Ray Cyrus is a Marvel character?
Billy Ray Cyrus is in a Marvel comic, published.
Okay.
This is probably early '90s. We had a sub-imprint called Marvel Music. This is from going back almost 30 years now. This is an achy breaky hard time.
Wow. Does he have any superpowers?
He's a knight.
A knight?
Yeah, I haven't read in a while. I think there's some time travel aspects to the story.
Oh no,
Here's a shot of him singing live in concert.
If you can't make the concert, you can at least make the comic rendering of the concert.
For those of us trapped in places that Billy wasn't coming around to, this was our one chance to experience Billy live.
Wow. Call up your local comic book shop and be a real big weirdo and ask for the Billy Ray Cyrus comic. Like, you got any back issues of the Billy Ray Cyrus book?
If we could make this a nationwide trend, everyone call a comic shop and ask for this.
I want to see him join up. Like, he could be, a Great Lakes Avenger, maybe?
I suspect Billy Ray would probably be more of a Oklahoma Avenger, a Tulsa Avenger. I have no idea where Billy Ray Cyrus is from.
All right, so Steve, our guest today is someone who is just a hilarious person, an amazing writer, a director, been behind things like MTV's Clone High, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Lego Movie, 21 Jump Street, and of course, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Please welcome Phil Lord. Phil, how have you been doing?
For a writer, I was sort of built for this. So,
yeah.
It's springtime for introverts. And my poor girlfriend, she's used to being friends with people and going into the world and talking to her friends and stuff. This is I've been training for this my whole life.
So I want to know a little bit about your comic origin story. How did you get involved in comics? What brought you in?
My dad ran a dance company, and he decided he wanted to do a dance that he choreographed with the Mad Magazine cartoonist Don Martin.
Whoa!
And they had in Heart of the Dance where this couple was getting divorced and they were fighting over custody, and then they ripped the baby in half and stage blood went all over the and I'm 7.
Right. Oh my God.
And then Don Martin came to my house and did a drawing on a napkin for me, and my head exploded.
That is the
Still
dream.
in my house, my parents' house.
Wow.
So I was reading Captain Klutz, and then also I had all of the Ditko and Lee run of Doctor Strange.
This Ditko Doctor Strange is actually really interesting to me. It really opens up Doctor Strange into this beautiful world. The art in there becomes so engaging. I think probably the easiest used word is it becomes trippy and stuff. You're just seeing fangs out in space. It seems if you're that young, was that kind of blowing your mind then to see that?
Yeah, it's psychedelia for children, right?
Yeah.
And Chris and I, we more or less make psychedelia for children. A lot of that's very formative for me. The way I always felt about all the artwork is that it represented the universe of a person's heart, right? I think that's why it appealed to me. I think appeals to a lot of people is we all kind of feel there's a universe in your head that nobody can see.
Well, Steve, talk to me a little bit about how that came to be, because I know like Ditko went to Stan Lee, right, to kind of pitch out Doctor Strange.
That's the way I've always heard the story, that that this was an idea Steve had. It played into a lot of the philosophical themes that Steve chased in his works. I think trippy is the right word. Those Ditko Doctor Strange comics are just incredible to read. You fall right into them. They feel three-dimensional.
It's amazing, though, his grasp on culture, because like in 1965, like Jefferson Airplane did a concert for Doctor Strange. Like this, like, you know, like to see like a band being like, yeah, like this is our thing.
What's great about that is that really brings, Paul, your two interests into one live arena.
Finally.
You know, when Marvel in the 60s started breaking out in college campuses, I think you can look at Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange as two of the characters that really sort of broke into that angsty 18, 19-year-old world. You can read an issue of that early Doctor Strange and get the munchies out of it.
Yeah. I just think that Doctor Strange as a character is kind of interesting, too, because you can make the point that Doctor Strange has his whole character arc in his origin story. He's egotistical, he becomes a hero, and then he's just sort of like, no, I got it, I'm switched, let's go.
As you say, like he goes through his journey pretty quickly, and then he has like this stoic veneer, but underneath it, I feel like there's this roiling personality. Like some of my favorite stories are when he's trying to wrestle with the more corporeal things of his life, like can he find love, and how that's a conflict with being that like spiritual Zen guy.
We were talking before about how, you know, the movies and shows that you work on have this kind of interesting mix of being like psychedelia for children, but I mean, everything that you guys do has an interesting slant to it, and I think one of the characters that people really jumped on from Spider-Verse was Spider-Ham, and you actually co-authored your first comic book. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we got to know Jason Latour, who's one of the guys who created Spider-Gwen, and one night he texts me, he's like, I'm doing a thing, I need like 6 extra pages in this Spider-Ham special that I'm gonna do, and do you guys want to help me write it? We just started texting back and forth like philosophical things of like how Ham must feel. And Jason's thing was like, people don't know how to handle a comic character who's serious but also silly at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've written a handful of comics. There is...
We know, Paul.
Buy 'em! So there is just this excitement in doing it, and I always kind of describe it as, like, you're writing, directing, and acting all at the same time. I mean, I guess you're familiar with that just in the animation space, but it's unlike any other process I've ever done in writing.
You know, in animation, you just revise things so often, and then you write something and you think it works, and then you see it with images, and you hate everything you wrote. You're like, these drawings are so much better, but then you're kind of going like, man, there's just too many words. How do we get damn words off the page?
You'll pull out words. You see like the images do so much work for you. And I know, Steve, you were working in that space, obviously editing so many books. Like, was that something that you always were coming up against, like kind of like trimming it down, like smoothing out the dialogue?
You know, the classic Marvel method is what Stan created, of where he would just write the outline of the story and then let the artist go to town. But it is the ultimate, I think, way to write the comics. You let the story tell the art and add words as you need them. And in that sense, it's similar to animation.
The editor is always mad at us at Marvel because we'd always be like tweaking little things the whole way through. But now that I know, Steve, that it's industry standard, I'm going to fight my editor. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me know. Phil, it's been so great chatting with you. We talked a little bit about your comic book experience as a kid. There is a place in Miami, kind of near where you lived. It's called Corca Comics. That's with a K. And Corca Comics is, right now, while the doors are closed, doing a lot of mail orders, so you can request these things. But I think it's so important, as we say in every episode, to support these local small businesses because they were there. They were there for all of us, and they gave us a place to hang out, and we want to be able to have that kind of continue on.
You know, my friends and I in elementary school, it was a different time. So they would let us go on our BMX bikes wherever, and we basically spent every Saturday going down to the comics shop and, you know, reading a bunch of stuff, and we became friends with this guy Steve, who was the owner, and we spent enough time down there that my dad went down to talk to Steve. And like, and just sort of like poke around and make sure it was all Jake.
Yeah, they didn't want you to get into like a different strokes bicycle repairman situation.
I've only seen the beginning. What happens?
Phil, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking comics with us. We really appreciate it. And remember, support your local small comic book shops. They need you more than ever. This is the link you can go to find them in your area. And thank you, Phil.
This was a joy. Thanks, guys. Bye.